What is up, everybody? Hey, today, welcome back to the Hunter Call the Wild, and today we're going to be comparing the two main rifle scopes in this game, and that is the Hyperion scope and the Argus. Both are, fairly different, but serve a similar purpose. Both are very good scopes. I highly recommend both of them. Whichever one you use is fine, but today, a lot of people have asked me, which is the better one? Which one do you prefer? Today, I'm going to try and give you an answer on that. And I think y'all are going to like this. It's going to depend on which style of hunting you choose. Alright, so let's go ahead and talk economics. How much do these scopes cost? Going ahead and take a look in the store right here. The Argus is $36,000 in game. The Hyperion is $12,000. Quite a big difference in cost. The Argus costs 3 times as much. However, by the time you unlock the Argus, it does take longer to unlock the Argus than the Hyperion. It just does. It takes a good bit longer. You should have plenty of money to buy it. So really, cost shouldn't be too big of an issue. Now, let's talk about the clarity of the glass in the scope. Okay, certain scopes, the starter scope, are terrible. You can hardly see through them. But let's check out these two scopes. Right here we have the Hyperion. Very clear glass, definitely a 10 out of 10. Then this gun, the 300, has the Argus on it. Let's take a look at this. Very clear glass again, another 10 out of 10 on clarity. Now let's take a look at scope stutter. This can best be seen at longer ranges. There is a little bit of an issue sometimes that the scopes will have a tendency to stutter when you hold your breath. The reticle will just kind of like stop and hold. It's barely noticeable. Like, y'all may not even be able to notice it. It's barely noticeable on the Hyperion scope. Let's go on ahead and take a look with the 300. We're going to zoom in, and we have the Argus scope right here. And there's a little bit more stutter. Definitely a little bit more. If you don't know when to account for it, I guess you could say that it might mess you up, but it really shouldn't. If you learn, how to account for it, it should be fine. So for stutter, I'm going to give the Argus scope a 7 out of 10 and the Hyperion a 9 out of 10. All right, now let's talk about the zoom on these scopes. Okay, so the Hyperion scope is a 4 to 8 by 42 millimeter scope, so it is going to have 4 to 8 times magnification. Pretty nice to be able to see. You can definitely zoom in a little bit further. You can see a little bit further than you can with the starting scope, which is a 1 to 4 times magnification. But, it's not amazing. I wouldn't recommend it for like a 400 meter shot. But this gun, it has 8 to 16 by 50 millimeter scope, 8 to 16 times magnification. You can really zoom in. I mean, it's way more powerful than even the binoculars. Like, I use the Argus scope to spot animals at long distance. Okay, very powerful zoom on this scope. All right, so let's talk about near shots and far shots. Okay, so we're going to real quick put up a 50 meter target. If I zoom out all the way, near shot, super easy to make with the Hyperion scope. However, let's go out to 350 meters. This is going to be a long way out there. How accurate can I be? Still fairly accurate. I can get it roughly where I want. I do need to be aiming a little bit higher, but it is definitely a little more difficult. If you don't have a lot of practice, it can be much harder. So let's go ahead and take a look at this with the Argus scope. And I'm going to put the Argus scope on the 338 just so you have, an equal comparison here. So we are zoomed all the way out. You can definitely see how if an animal was moving or you really had to just, whip the gun out fast, it would be difficult to get on target. But once you're on target, it's not that bad. Now here's where this scope is almost magical. Okay, let's zero for 300. We have a 350 meter shot out there. And look at that. Just an absolute dot. Okay, this scope is amazing for those long-range shots. So for near shots, I'm going to give the Argus an 8 out of 10, just because it takes a little bit of time to find your target. But for far shots, I'm going to give it a 10 out of 10. If I could give it something higher, I definitely would. The Hyperion is going to get a 10 out of 10 for near shots. Really nice and easy. But for those further to reach shots, I'm going to give it a 6 out of 10 just because it is a little bit more difficult to, see the target at that distance. Alright, so let's talk about return to target. Okay, this is the amount of time, it takes you when you fire a shot to get back on target if you needed to make a follow-up. And we're going to use the 338 when we're doing this comparison. I have targets out there at 150 meters. I'm going to start with the Hyperion scope. Okay, let's zoom in. This is usually where I am when I'm trying to shoot because I like to be able to see. And I can get on target relatively quick after my shots. Okay, only 2 of those shots went kind of a strike. The rest of them, right where I wanted them to be, very quickly. Now, let's take a look with the Argus scope. If you were to zoom this thing all the way in and try and do this, it would be very difficult, okay? It is a lot more difficult because, your scope is zoomed in a whole lot more. It makes it more difficult. But you know what you can do? You can unzoom it. Alright, you can zoom it out. And then you have the same magnification as the Hyperion scope zoomed all the way in. Okay, the 8 times magnification. And look at that. You had the same amount of recoil. I can get right back on target just as fast. And if you use the Argus scope, okay, if you use the Argus scope, you can get on target a whole lot easier at further distances. So I can get right back on target at those further distances. However, if I were to use the Hyperion, this is definitely going to be a little bit more difficult because I have to kind of line up my shot. It's a whole lot further out. I'm not nearly as precise as I was with the Argus. So the Hyperion can be just as good at close range as the Argus is, but the Argus is so much better at long range. So with that said, when it comes to, the shots that you're trying to get back on target, I'm going to give the Argus a 10 out of 10 because it did so good. And the Hyperion, I'm going to give it, we'll say an 8 out of 10. I mean, it did really good, but it's just going to struggle with those longer shots. But, if that's the case, set your tripods up just a little bit closer for grinding. Alright, so we have done our short evaluation on both scopes. Let's take a look at the total points that each scope has acquired. The Argus has 45 points, okay? The Hyperion has 43. So, based off that, the Argus is a little bit better. However, I think we can determine that this is just going to be based on what you use it for, okay? If you're hunting a very brushy, thick map like, let's say, Mississippi Acres, you may want to use the Hyperion scope. You can get on your targets faster, especially since a lot of them are going to be at closer ranges. If you're hunting a map like Reventuli Coast or Silver Ridge Peaks, you may want to use the Argus scope, okay? If you're grinding and you have your tripod set up close, you can probably get away with either, but if you want to use the Hyperion, you can. If you want to use the Argus, that's fine. But if you're going to be grinding at a longer range, I would recommend using the Argus. So, take a look at the scenario that you're going to be in before you go hunting and select which scope best meets the qualifications that you need it to. I think here we're able to determine that yes, the Argus is a little bit of a better scope, but the Hyperion does still have some very good uses, especially in those brushier and closer environments. So, with that said, guys, I hope you all enjoyed this video. Hope you found it helpful. Please let me know down below. Please don't forget to leave a like on this video as it will help more people to find it. Hope you have a wonderful rest of your day, and I will see you next time.